We asked 20 institutions to tell us how many endowments were still in force. First Active and Irish Life gave no indication. The rest had 37,800 active between them. AIB's typical shortfall was €14,000. All others refused to say. We put it to the Irish Insurance Federation that endowment mortgage presentations had been deliberately misleading.
If it was misleading, and if people felt that they were missold a policy, well then one would expect that they would complain, and one would probably expect, because they have received communications from insurance companies, that we would be seeing those complaints coming through.
Let me bring you through some of the misleading things.
At the moment, we're not seeing those complaints coming through.
Let me bring you through some of the misleading things that are in it. Firstly, you have the issue of the allocation of the fund, the proportion of the fund to investment. That nowhere in the documentation which people are presented does it suggest that the first year's premiums are going to go as fees and not be assigned to their policies. That's misleading.
The degree of detail that was required to be in a lot of insurance quotations and literature has increased over time. At the time, it may be that there was not the same degree of transparency that there is now. That is a possibility.
Yet it is a contract. You're asking somebody to sign a contract with what that, for instance, is an onerous condition, which is not brought to anybody's attention. It's deliberately misleading.
There might be elements that were not clearly explained in all cases. That is a possibility.
Well, let me tell you another one. Apart from the fact that the first year's premium is not allocated to the policy, there's typically the case that on the schedule, in some of the examples that we have seen, it says 100% of your fund will be allocated to your policy. By the time you strip it away and get into further documentation and spend 3 weeks following it through, it transpires that only 96% of your funds are going to your policy after year 2.
I'm not in a position to comment on the precise wording of illustrations that were done by the variety of companies, because these wordings would have varied from company to company during that period. But I would go back and reiterate that if people have complaints, well then they should be making them known.
That first year policy premium went to the seller. So there is a conflict of interest which is in direct contradiction of a code of conduct which sits on the wall.
There is always that element of difficulty where the salesperson is remunerated by commission. And I know, it has been the case that concerns have been expressed about whether commission always makes a salesperson independent. But the alternative is usually the payment of a fee, which a lot of consumers aren't wildly enthusiastic about either.
But at the time, the people who are suffering in relation to these shortfalls had no idea that the person with the hard sell had a major vested interest in them taking this option, which has worked out badly for them. Does the insurance intermediary and the insurance industry not have a big case to answer?
The insurance intermediaries, first of all, and it's worth bearing in mind, would have been acting as the agent of the client, not of the insurance company.
They're tied agents in the main to insurance companies, so insurance companies are responsible for what they sell. In the main?
It depends. I mean, there are thousands of insurance intermediaries out there at the moment. There are tied agents, there are employees of insurance companies. But you're right, yes, I mean, there are general obligations on insurance intermediaries to act in the interests of clients and to recommend appropriate products.
Do you think they did that?
Much of this discussion is because the investment growth over the period did not turn out to be what was projected. And that is unfortunate.
Actually, in fairness, it is not. It is to do with the fact that people that the wool was pulled over their eyes in relation to a lot of conditions in these policies, which they did not know.
Insurance companies would have, the products were designed at the time as reasonable products. At that time, illustrations were provided on the basis of assumptions that were reasonable at that time.
Do you have a liaison with the insurance companies? Do they feed back information to you, and do you get their views on various things?
Yes, we will get general feedback from our members.
What is their reaction and what is their feeling with regard to this issue of explaining risk to people? Do they feel that they did explain the risk to people better than they did in Britain, or do they feel that they didn't?
In general, I think insurance companies feel that their response to the issue has been responsible in terms of dealing with complaints properly and in terms of communications to policyholders. And I would reiterate that insurance companies are going beyond the requirements of the Consumer Credit Act to send out regular notices to customers telling them how their policy is performing.
Sending a letter is one thing in terms of your obligations, but it doesn't help people with the problem, because a lot of them feel they would not be in this problem if they ever understood that there were risks associated with it.
Well, if they feel that they were missold, then they should make their complaint through the appropriate channels.
While the insurance industry knows there's a problem, they claim to know little about it. While they continue to send out shortfall letters, they still say there's no research or industry figures on how many people are affected by shortfalls or by how much they're short. No one knows how much their customers will now have to pay to make up for that shortfall. But for those people who are missold endowment mortgages, it's a price that grows by the day.
Our economics editor George Lee reporting there. And that's all from us for tonight. The next RT News is News 2 on RT2 at 11:25. For now, though, for myself and everyone Primetime, have a very good night.
If you would like to join John Bowman